Coming up, authorities at the Bourbon County Jail say they plan to relocate some of their inmates. We'll tell you why.
With a warm Friday ahead, we've graduated from heat advisories all the way to extreme heat warnings. Thunderstorms up to our north as well. The latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And Daca turns 10 years old this week. We take a look back at the progress and setbacks of the program.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll take a look at those stories in just a moment. But first, let's go to Michael Hayslip in the Skywatch Weather Center.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a little bit interesting up to our north. Luckily, it stayed along I-70. Really hasn't affected most of us. You'll notice our temperature's down just a little bit from yesterday, and so we're riding mid-70s right now. But here's what I want to point out. What we do have from Kansas City and then Road I-70 all the way headed towards St. Louis right now, the majority of it up in the northern portion of northern Missouri as well. But here's what that results in, and we'll come back to our color codes in here in just a second. But around that St. Louis area, they've now been lifted out of Kansas City. Just in the last 2 minutes, they've been lifted. In and around St. Louis, you see that's a severe thunderstorm watch. We'll go ahead and put the radar back on here, just kind of give you an idea about what we're talking about. That thing has been a mess. It's packing thunder, lightning, wind, and hail with it. Now, let's come back to the 4 states because we've got some different colors than what we've had past couple of days, especially up to our northwest. You see that dark red right there? That is indicative of an excessive heat watch. And so that means we're going to be up to around 105 to 110 in the northern portion of the 4 states. And of course, the orange, we're accustomed to that going through this week. That is a heat advisory. So still locked in the midst of the heat wave that has now actually moved up into the, I don't want to call it the upper plains, but you can tell instead of it moving up toward the Great Lakes like it has been, it'd be nice if I could not do that. Instead of doing the Great Lakes bend as it was, like that, it is now almost a rectangle, if you will, throughout the entire Midwest all the way to the Atlantic coast. So for the 7-day forecast, now that we skirted out of that storm that was up by KC, our northern county's pretty much done. Let's get back up into the 90s for Father's Day weekend. Put future track into motion here, Tanya, and give you an idea. The precipitation just kind of hangs out there. Just going to be hot once again. And coming up here in just a little bit, did a little talk with a doctor and a nurse, a doctor and her nurse yesterday. And change some of the things that we were talking about as far as what we look at for heat exhaustion and heat stroke. And so I kind of want to go back through those. We started at noon yesterday, but I said we were going to revisit that because there were some very important things that she alerted me to that she really wanted me to point out. And so we'll break that down here as we go through the show. Okay, some useful information, very important information we'll have in just a few moments. Yeah. But first, let's go to our news. A Jasper County, Missouri man suffers serious injuries following a motorcycle crash. The crash took place on County Road 100, 4 miles west of Carthage. Authorities say Dustin Lingenfelter of Sarcoxie, Missouri, lost control of his motorcycle, and this caused the vehicle to overturn. He was transported to Mercy Hospital in Joplin. Authorities arrest an El Dorado Springs, Missouri man after he allegedly made terroristic threats. Officials say David Arduzer Jr. made threats against the juvenile office at the Vernon County Courthouse last week. Arduzer is charged with first-degree terroristic threat and tampering with a judicial officer. They say he also had outstanding warrants from St. Clair County and was out on bond from Cedar County from charges that included unlawful possession of a firearm and second-degree domestic assault. Authorities say the exact details of the threat will not be released until the investigation is complete and after criminal proceedings. Authorities investigate a death after discovering a body in Fort Scott, Kansas. Officials say they found the body in the woods near the river at Gunn Park. They say they are still investigating the cause of death and they're not yet releasing the name of the victim. And authorities search for information in a fatal hit-and-run crash involving a motorcycle and apparently a stolen pickup truck. It happened on a rural road about 3.5 miles west of Jenkins, Missouri, Wednesday morning. Investigators say a pickup hit a motorcycle driven by 38-year-old Patrick Anderson of Aurora, Missouri. Now, Anderson died at the scene. The Highway Patrol says the truck driver got out of the pickup and fled on a bicycle.
They say an unknown person then stopped in a car and took the driver from the scene. Investigators think the pickup had recently been stolen out of Monette, and they don't know where the bicycle came from or who picked up the driver. Joplin man originally accused of kidnapping another man at gunpoint receives 5 years probation on a plea deal. Joplin police say Benjamin Bartlett held a man at gunpoint in the back of a car in December and refused to let him leave. Officers found the car and gave chase. Eventually, Bartlett left the car and ran, but was caught. Bartlett pled guilty to resisting arrest, and prosecutors have dropped the kidnapping charge. Authorities plan to relocate inmates at the Bourbon County, Kansas jail. Officials say there are not enough jail employees to properly staff it. The jail needs a minimum of 12 staff members. Come Monday, they will be down to 8. Inmates are being moved to other facilities in southeast Kansas. HVAC system at the jail has also been out for several days. Work to fix began this week and is expected to finish in the coming days. The Daca program turns 10 years old this week, and activists marked the occasion by taking to the streets. Back in 2012, President Barack Obama signed an executive order creating the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, better known as Daca, to protect immigrants brought to the U.S. illegally as children from deportation. Despite Supreme Court victory back in 2020, the fate of Daca has always been in question. Just last year, a federal court judge in Texas issued a ruling blocking any new Daca applications, essentially closing the door on anyone not already enrolled in the program. Coming up in our next half hour, we'll have more on the Daca program and reaction from dreamers who hope Congress will move soon to protect the program. Well, some Upward Bound students at Missouri Southern got to put their drone flying skills to the test. Upward Bound is a program through the U.S. Department of Education that works with area high school students to help prepare them for post-secondary education. On Thursday, those students learned the ins and outs of drone flying and the opportunities that come with the skill.
Much more opportunities for professional opportunities to serve the community and to participate. Everything from police officers to military members to deliveries of packages, pizzas, whatever, food.
The class usually cost $187, but for them, it was free. A local organization hands out more than $24,000 in grants. On Wednesday, the Rotary Club of Joplin gave out grants between $500 and $10,000 to 9 area organizations. Those organizations include the Ronald McDonald House, Pro Musica, and the Community Clinic of Southwest Missouri.
You know, Ronald McDonald House actually is funded with all private monies. And so when you have organizations such as Joplin Rotary Club, it makes a difference. It makes a difference in what you can provide for your families. Because again, Ronald McDonald House will be turning 24 years old. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with one purpose, to serve families of seriously ill children. So this helps us tremendously.
Organization announced the grants at an event at the End Zone facility at Missouri Southern. Well, you might get a glitchy signal this week when you go to watch KOAM or Fox 14. But don't worry, as we've been telling you, it is a sign of progress. We'll be broadcasting from a lower temporary antenna while a crew installs a new, more technically advanced antenna at the top of our tower. It's a final step in our More Power project. This will allow some viewers who previously lost our signal to receive us once again. Now, if everything goes according to plan, we will be back up and stronger than ever by the end of June. If you want to find out more about our tower project, you can head over to our website at koamnewsnow.com/power.
I saw some things yesterday that those gentlemen were doing on the tower that I did not know were humanly possible. The way that they were able to scale the tower, safely do it. It's absolutely amazing to watch them work. Skywatch storm tracker with thunderstorm activity up to our north, really tracked along I-70. We saw a little bit in our far northern counties, but for the most part we are done right now. So we kind of sit back and get ready for a warm one. Even though we're a couple degrees off from what we've been last couple of days, still going to warm right back up into the mid-90s later on. Heat advisories, even excessive heat warnings for the far northwestern portion of the 4 states, leading us to heat index readings of 105 to 107 this afternoon.
All right, that's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, FIFA announces the host cities for the 2026 World Cup. We're going to tell you which Missouri city ended up on the list. Plus, we're going to tell you about a new movie based on the true story about a family who wins millions from playing the lottery. And we've got some tips for you and your family on how to prevent summer rashes. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Joplin Outlaws hit the field to begin a 5-game homestand, hosting Jeff City. This is already the 4th meeting between these two teams in just the past 5 days. Outlaws have won 2 of those last 3 meetings, including a 2-0 victory Wednesday night. But the Outlaws find themselves in trouble early with one on Ross Lovich. Up and away to right field as the Jeff City Renegades score 5 runs in the 2nd inning alone. Outlaws get back into it. Sam Fagan, gapper into deep center. That's going plate 2 for Joplin. Fagan has a triple. Jeff City leads 5-3, but the Renegades not slowing down. Lovich again. Ho! Get you some! 2nd home run of the day, 3rd home run of the game for Jefferson City, extending the lead back to 4. In the end, Renegades with a little more offensive firepower. Wild one to finish. 15-10 the final. Outlaws now get the Nevada Griffins tonight. First pitch, 7 o'clock. Columbus head coach Mick Tedlock named the 3A Coach of the Year. Tedlock leading the Titans to a historic finish this past season. Columbus made its first ever state tournament appearance, but they did not just make the tournament, they went on to earn a spot in the state championship game. Titan finished as the 3A state runner-up, a 22-3 overall record.
I was surprised, and didn't expect it, and, but it's a contribute to the boys, the players, and the assistant coaches too. These juniors, they're going to battle, and it's a real good class in every sport. I mean, they compete very well, and I know they've got a goal for next year to win it. I mean, they're going to come out and they're going to be ready to go, So we got to develop some more pitching and just work one day at a time, one game at a time, and reach that goal next year.
Congratulations to Mick. That is well deserved right there. Kansas City is going to be one of the host cities for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Had a watch party in KC yesterday afternoon when the announcement was made. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes sharing his excitement before the decision was actually final.
It would be awesome. I mean, I was talking about with Brittany yesterday. I'm going to be at like every one of those games I can possibly be at if they do get them here. And I know Kansas City and how much they love soccer. I mean, you see it with Sporting and how they sell out almost every game. And then with the Current now in Sporting Stadium, they're bringing in these huge crowds. So you know that Kansas City loves that sport. And I think if we get that bid, we'll be selling out Arrowhead, Sporting, the Current Stadium whenever it gets built up. And it'll be a great experience, and I'll be at every single one of them.
Patrick Mahomes, of course, has himself an NFL championship ring. And guess what? The Golden State Warriors, the players that have been on that team in the last 8 years, they've now got themselves 4 rings. That's right, 4 NBA championships in the last 8 years as they win Game 6 of the NBA Finals 103-90. Steph Curry is your Finals MVP, 34 points, and that is his first Finals MVP of his career to go along with 2 league most valuable players. I had a good one for the newsroom when I walked in today. I'm going to throw some names and some teams out there at you, okay? Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Boston Celtics. That's it. That's your list for teams or people that have as many rings as Golden State Warriors head coach Steve Kerr. Bulls, Spurs, Warriors. He's done it with all 3 teams. Still to come on the KOAM Morning News, meet a group of Ukrainian artists showing the world what the Russian invasion looks like through their eyes on canvas. And a check on our 7-day forecast from the KOAM Morning News returns. Temperatures just a little bit as we find ourselves in the low to mid 70s compared to the high 70s, if not 80s we've had the past couple of days. But even with that being said, and all the thunderstorm activity staying up to our far north, we really didn't get clipped by too much of it. We still have not only heat advisories, but that darker red up in the northwest that indicates an excessive heat watch. And look at that, it lasts all the way until Monday. That's right, Monday. A 7-day forecast that'll put us up into the 90s today, feeling about like 105 to 107, and continue the heat wave all the way through Father's Day weekend. Time now for our KOAM News Now Instapoll and our Something to Talk About on the Facebook page. New movie debuts this weekend. It's actually based on a true story. It's about a retiree whose discovery changed his entire town. David Daniel with a preview.
I'm playing the lottery and I'm winning. I figured out the math and I won $15,000.
Bryan Cranston and Annette Bening play unlikely lottery wizards in Jerry and Marge Go Large.
I found this flaw in the game and I had to find out if I was right.
He was. In this game, the bigger the bet, the better the odds.
So you want to start a corporation?
Bring in the whole town. If we sell shares, we'll have more capital to invest.
Go big or go home.
Then we'll split the profits with the shareholders.
Everybody rides.
Will you stop talking like that?
Sorry, I'm just really into it.
She's really into it.
To do something that was uplifting and positive and sweet and not cynical, it was important for me to do that. Coming out of COVID, I wanted to lift my own spirits.
I think the pandemic has reset a lot of our thinking about what's important, what should we really be doing with our lives, are we still connected?
How can I help you? We'd like to buy 8,000 windfall tickets.
I'm gonna get you first.
Bening says it's a film for everyone, including her elderly parents.
I knew that they would be able to sit and watch it and enjoy it, and it is one of those kind of movies. And I think we all want to do that sometimes. We all want to watch that kind of movie, and for us to be able to make one, I mean, for me, it was great fun.
It was a really warm, modern, all-American story, kind of a throwback movie in a way that I think we could all use right now.
Are you guys drug dealers?
We're professional lottery players.
That isn't a thing.
It is now.
In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
Jerry and Marge Go Large premiering today. It's out on Paramount Plus. Our question for you specifically is, do you play the lottery? 2 ways to connect each and every morning. KOAMnewsnow.com/vote takes you straight to the poll, or you can connect to us via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now. We'll update the results a little later in the show. Healthwatch is next.
Topping Healthwatch this morning, there may be a link between climate change and infant health. According to a study published in the New England Journal of Medicine on Wednesday, the burning of fossil fuels, which helps create pollution and extreme heat, appeared to pose a threat to babies and children. Some pediatricians say they've seen a rise in heat-related illnesses, including heat stroke, over the past few years. In some cases, young patients even suffered climate-linked mental health issues. These findings come as severe heat warnings are in effect for millions of people in the Midwest and Southeast. Wearing sunscreen can reduce your risk for sunburn, skin cancer, and other damage caused by the sun. But for some, lotions and other moisturizers can lead to irritated skin. Mandy Gaither has more on ingredients to avoid in order to prevent some summer rashes.
It's that time of year again. More time outdoors means more sunscreen, moisturizers, and lotions. But if you're not careful, some of those chemicals can wreak havoc on sensitive skin.
One exposure to these different chemical substances can really ignite a fire that can burn for quite some time.
Dr. Kara Wada at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center says before you buy your summer skincare products, look at the labels.
Some of the ingredients that you'll find in chemical-based sunscreens include oxybenzone, benzophenone 3 and 4, avobenzone. Those are kind of the chemical sunscreens that work well, but for some folks can cause an allergic type rash.
Wada says when it comes to cosmetics and other personal care products, many labeled as all natural or chemical free can still contain ingredients that may cause a skin reaction.
So those are marketing terms and there's no standard definition for them.
She suggests finding a free app that can scan a product and list its ingredients. And if your skin is sensitive, also avoid anything with fragrance. It can cause allergic rashes too.
Doing a little patch test on the inside of your wrist or elbow for a couple days with just a small amount of the product can give you a little bit of a tester to see if you may have problems with it.
And if you're having significant skin discomfort, itchiness, or redness, Wada says see your doctor.
There's a type of test that allergists are able to do called patch testing. It can help determine which ingredients may be causing problems on your skin. Newly released data found abortion rates increased in the U.S. from 2017 to 2020. Abortion rights group Guttmacher Institute released the survey on Wednesday. It found there were more than 930,000 abortions in 2020. That's up from 862,000 in 2017. Data also showed 1 in 5 pregnancies ended in abortion in 2020. That's also up from 2017. According to the group, abortion rates had been decreasing since 1981. Experts have said access to better birth control contributed to the previous decline. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
Weather on the 7s with the Skywatch storm tracker and heavy thunderstorm activity. I mean, we'll come back. Blew the clock, so guess nobody paid attention to that right after this.
Coming up, authorities at the Bourbon County Jail say they plan to relocate some of their inmates. We'll tell you why.
Swirling cloud cover with thunderstorms across the Midwest, but for us, it is all about the heat. The latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And Daca turns 10 years old this week. We take a look back at the progress and setbacks of the program.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's now 5:31. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first, let's go to Michael Hayslip in the Skywatch Weather Center.
Kind of some interesting cloud cover, Tanya, and the fact that we get some swirling motion from the low pressure that came across I-70 earlier this morning and really has resulted in some serious thunderstorm activity for central and northern Missouri. Multiple storm reports coming out of central Missouri where high winds up to 70 miles an hour have resulted in structural damage and limbs being down. We stayed out of the fray, and actually it did temper off our temperatures quite a bit, as we're now sitting at 74 in Joplin. Compare that to the 79, 80 degrees that we've had for the first 4 days of the work week. Daily Almanac for today, we won't challenge the record of 1953 that got all the way up to 100 degrees, but at the same point in time, it is still going to be a warm one. We're in between 72 and 75 right now. There's a look at our Skywatch storm tracker. Now, the radar shows you all the thunderstorm activity up to our north. If we put on those storm reports, anything from 70-mile-an-hour winds to hail to also now flooding in downtown St. Louis. They have a mess on their hands. For us, it is all about the heat advisories. That's indicated in the orange. Then you see that dark red up in the top left-hand portion of your screen. That's an excessive heat watch lasting all the way to Monday. Going to range in between, say 103 to 107 for the most part. And they get up in that excessive heat warning area, you're talking about 105 to 110. Carry this all the way through Father's Day weekend, maintain the 90s, and then we're just going to ride that. Remember, the beginning of next week is actually going to have a higher average daily temperature than what we had this week.
Okay, well, we are...
I know you're a fan of those overnight lows, though.
Yes.
They actually will drop down, low 70s, high 60s. And we did not set a record yesterday for warmest overnight low. We got down all the way to 74 degrees, so we missed the record by about 4 or 5 degrees right there. So actually was pretty comfortable.
Do you know that this is the third Friday of the month that it hasn't snowed or rained since February?
No way, is it really?
Like downpoured or snowed? Yeah.
No, I did not realize that.
Yeah, it seems like Fridays are notorious for getting that, especially the middle Friday of the month.
So I've got to ask you this.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is why, here, well, no, I can't do it. I don't want to do that. Maybe I'm wearing plaid. So we keep a calendar. Mm-hmm. Let me take that back.
And I need to check what February and January was.
Doug keeps a very exact calendar. I just use Doug's information. But what made you think about the third Friday of every month? There's got to be something on your schedule that brought that up.
We host a bike night at the Dirty
There you go. Okay, I wondered what it was.
March it snowed, downpoured in April and May. Beautiful weather tonight.
Because you were like
Beautiful
that
weather.
with that information. Yeah. I'm like, there's got to be something about that third Friday. Cool.
It's been rain out or snow out every time.
I did not realize that. That's crazy.
Until today, finally.
It's going to be hot.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect bike weather.
Bike weather.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Just so you know, you brought that up. No, just kidding.
I'm gonna put that in I'm gonna write that in Doug's calendar. Under you know Doug. We all love Doug, but you know how exact he is on his calendar and the information he puts in there. I'm gonna slide that in. I'm just gonna write that on a side note. Tanya said, and put that in there. And next year, because he always goes back and looks historically and everything, he's gonna go back and look at that next year and be like, what is this? I'm take it up with Tanya.
Well, and I think over the winter months, it always snowed on the second. We had some kind of snow or really bad weather on the second Friday of the month.
Yeah, and
Fridays were notorious for bad weather.
One thing that I did look up, and this is because when Chef Anthony's here on Thursdays, it was a running joke for the longest time that we could have perfect weather from Monday through Wednesday, and Friday, minus if it was the third Friday, and on Thursdays, it would be a mess.
Yeah.
Of some fashion, because Anthony was coming in.
And they knew what he drove and how fun it was to drive through a snowdrift.
That's why they have third Thursdays and not third Fridays. How about that?
I guess. Well, I'm hoping, yes, there's a 10% chance, but that's how strong is 10%?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Enough to provide a little more humidity out there.
You'll notice I just breezed over that. We're not going to get anything today.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. All right. Well, some inmates at the Bourbon County, Kansas jail are being moved. Officials say there are just not enough jail employees to properly staff it. The jail needs a minimum of 12 staff members, but come Monday, they will be down to 8. The inmates are being moved to other facilities in southeast Kansas. The HVAC system at the jail has also been out for several days. Work to fix it began this week and is expected to finish in the coming days. Well, exactly a decade ago this week, former President Barack Obama signed an executive order creating the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, better known as DACA, to protect immigrants brought to the U.S. illegally as children from deportation. Since then, the program has endured victories and setbacks. And as Gloria Pazmino reports, for those covered by the program, the anniversary is bittersweet.
On the 10th anniversary of the DACA program, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, immigration activists are holding nationwide rallies to call on lawmakers to take action.
We're urging Congress for a permanent bipartisan protection for all of our dreamers.
10 years after then President Barack Obama authorized the program through executive action, DACA is still in serious jeopardy. Despite a Supreme Court victory in 2020, Luis Cortez, a lawyer who is covered by the act and who was part of the team that defended DACA in the high court, says the latest legal hurdle is in the state of Texas.
Part of the big call to action is to remind folks that individuals are still in limbo.
Last year, a federal judge in Texas issued a ruling blocking new DACA applications, essentially closing the doors for anyone not already enrolled in the program.
When we defended the program and we won, it was a big sigh of relief, but we knew that we weren't out of hot water yet, and we were hoping that this is the wake-up call that Congress really was looking for or needed.
Oral arguments in the U.S. Court of Appeals are scheduled for early next month. Meanwhile, for the more than 600,000 dreamers under the program, the anniversary is bittersweet.
So it's mixed feelings, but overall it's just a feeling of let's get things done.
Samantha Ramirez Herrera launched her production company thanks to DACA. And while she's hopeful, she doubts Congress will take action anytime soon.
We are beyond proving, how exceptional we are. We are beyond proving, our worth.
I'm Gloria Pazmino reporting.
The program grants some undocumented people a Social Security number, work permit, and deportation protection. To get approved, they must pass a background check, pay a $495 application fee, and renew every 2 years. Here's Michael with a look at your forecast.
Remember, we've got heat advisories and excessive heat warnings as we get all the way up to 95 degrees today. The wind, not so much an issue. It is the humidity that is really going to set in and take us all the way through Father's Day weekend into next week.
This morning, we're discussing playing the lottery. There's a brand new movie coming out today called Jerry and Marge Go Large. You can find it on Paramount Plus. Bryan Cranston plays Jerry Selby, a man who discovers a mathematical loophole while playing the lottery. Once he discovers the loophole, spoiler alert, he and his family begin winning more and more money. Now, the real-life Selbys gross more than $26 million from playing the lottery. They put their winnings towards renovating their home and helping their grandchildren and great-grandchildren pay for their educations. Around the nation, the lottery generates billions of dollars and more than 90 million people take their chances every year. But are you one of them?
And I'm sorry, you give me anything with Bryan Cranston and Annette Bening, and it's going to be good.
I know.
I promise you that. All right, so Tanya asked the question, do you play the lottery? Tanya, surprisingly, 80% right now say no.
That does surprise me.
Yeah. I'm interested to see where this goes for the rest of the morning.
I wonder if we should have stretched it into, do you take your chances with money like playing the lottery or gambling at the casino?
I had a marvelous store clerk in Fort Scott when I was in my younger days doing sports who asked me if I wanted a lottery ticket, and I told her no, I've never played the lottery. And the young woman looked at me and she goes, well, you'll never win because you don't play. And I went, well, I never thought about it that way.
This exact discussion was had last night between my husband and myself. We were talking and I said, I just need to win the lottery. He goes, well, you don't play, so you're not going to win.
True words, right? All right, you can take part each and every morning. KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. That'll deliver you right to the poll. Or you can also connect to us via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now.
All right. We'll be right back. Topping World Watch, a group of Ukrainian graphic artists is sharing powerful images of the Russian invasion. The artists, some of whom have left, some of whom have remained, are sharing their work with the world while trying to raise money for their country. Margaret Brennan spoke with some of them.
Artist Anna Sarvera does not know when she will return to Ukraine. She's haunted by the war.
You don't have an experience of the war, only feel hate, and it's terrible feeling. I was drawing in this feeling, and when you feel only that, you cannot do anything else.
Anna co-founded a collective to share graphic art from fellow illustrators.
Most of them decided not to leave the country. They were never stopping working and drawing.
Like artist Alexander Shatokin. As Russian bombs dropped on his city, he sent Anna works of art each day.
When I saw this, it made me tear up.
He was trying to capture all the child victims in one picture.
Anna's collective helped organize more than 40 exhibitions around the world to auction artwork and raise money for Ukraine, including at Ukraine House here in Washington.
Many of the women have left. They're refugees. Anna here, Anna Sarvera, is one of them.
She is now in Germany.
Illustrator Tanya Yakunova's work is inspired by the bravery of ordinary Ukrainians.
We have these videos where Russian shooting and people don't even scare of the sound of the gun.
Tanya used to illustrate children's books, but the war has robbed her and so many others of that innocence.
There is more stories about a woman who was raped in front of her small baby, and neither woman nor baby survived. They were shot. I felt so much hate for people who did it. This is probably the hardest piece I ever drew.
These women can't tell their stories, but you're telling their stories.
I wish I would never need to draw this.
Margaret Brennan, CBS News, Washington.
That's a look at one of your biggest headlines from around the world. We'll be right back with the news you need to know before you head out the door. Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Authorities in Joplin released the identity of the man who drowned in Grand Falls this week. Man is 35-year-old Stanley Luke of Carterville, Missouri. Authorities say on Tuesday, Luke tried to go over the falls with a pool toy, hit a rock, and drowned. Search crews from several local departments had been looking for Luke since he went missing. They found his body shortly after 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Oklahoma House and Senate failed to reach a deal on a tax cut package that Governor Kevin Stitt was urging them to pass. On Thursday, the House adjourned a special session after passing an array of tax cut options. Senate leaders dismissed the proposals as political theater. Senate President Pro Tem Greg Treat said he would assemble a working group to consider a more methodological approach to tax cuts. Republican Governor Kevin Stitt called the legislature into a special session to consider cutting the state's sales tax on groceries and reduce the individual income tax rate. Republican Attorney General candidate Chris Kobach endorses lowering the Kansas legal drinking age to 18. He promises that if he is elected this year, he'll challenge the federal policy preventing the move. Kobach criticized a 1980s federal law that threatens states with the loss of highway dollars if their drinking ages are below 21. He says he believes the U.S. Supreme Court would now overturn that law. Kobach said if 18-year-olds can go to war, they should have all the rights other citizens enjoy. Some inmates at the Bourbon County, Kansas jail are being moved. Officials say there are just not enough jail employees to properly staff them. The jail needs a minimum of 12 staff members, but come Monday, they will be down to 8. Inmates are being moved to other facilities in southeast Kansas. The HVAC system at the jail has also been out for several days. Work to fix it began this week and is expected to finish in the coming days. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Pretty comfortable outside. We've actually taken about anywhere from 5 to 6 degrees off from where we've been early in the morning pre-sunrise from Monday through Thursday. But with that being said, believe it or not, this afternoon is actually going to end up probably being our hottest day of the work week. The weather trend is going to lift us up into the mid to high 90s. We'll stop just a little bit short of the 1953 record that's 100 degrees, but at the same point in time, factor in all this humidity, and the muggy meter is going to show that it's going to feel rather oppressive, and that's because our heat index readings will be around 103 to 107. We even have excessive heat warnings for our far northwestern counties. Our overnight lows do get better as we head into Father's Day weekend, as we drop into the low 70s, high 60s, so those would be wonderful for evening and late night to do anything with Dad. And remember, next week, we're a far cry from this heat wave being over. Next week's going to be hotter than this week. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Well, people like Stephen Hawking have proven physical disabilities cannot stand in the way of amazing ideas and intelligence. An author in Alaska is also proving it again. The man who has quadriplegia is about to publish his third book after crafting every sentence using only his voice. Taylor Burke reports.
Delete word. Undo that.
Adam Freestone has learned that despite the failings of his body, his mind has no limitations.
Hopefully, the story would inspire kids or people that have disabilities.
Freestone was born with the neuromuscular disease, but it wasn't until he was around 10 that it started to affect him. Through the years, he loved playing video games. Once he lost the use of his hands, he poured himself into writing.
My hands got weaker and weaker until eventually I couldn't play games anymore. And so I was looking for something else to do, and I had all these ideas for stories, so I started learning how to write.
The loss of old dreams allowed new ones to soar. Freestone has published 2 books out of a series of 4. His lack of flexibility to type on a portable device makes that no easy task.
Go to the next line. Undo that. Arrow down.
Freestone has to compose his books through a talk-to-text program.
I do have a little bit of trouble talking, and the computer does a good job recognizing what I'm saying, but there's a lot of times that I'll say something and it'll come out completely incorrect.
It may take longer, but it's worth it if he can connect people without seeing each other.
If I could do it with all the issues that I've got, and I was hoping to show that they could do that, maybe they could do it, and that they shouldn't give up just because they're in a wheelchair.
His characters are a loose representation of himself, someone who stands out. Inspired by C.S. Lewis and J.K. Rowling, he uses his colorful imagination to create fantasies. Currently, he is working on the final touches for his third book, which is set to be released this fall. 4. His lack of flexibility to type on a portable device makes that no easy task.
Well, Freestone's writing can be found on Amazon. We'll be right back with another look at your Father's Day weekend forecast.
Temperatures right now ranging from the low to mid 70s, but even though it's a couple degrees off from what we've had past couple of days, we still find ourselves with heat advisories indicated in the orange. And I'm going to run those until tonight. But up here, I want to point out the excessive heat warnings that we have. The key factor of this is look at the expiration time. That does not expire until Monday. So it gives you an idea about what we're locked in here as we head into Father's Day weekend, as our temperatures will consistently range in the 90s and our heat index readings will be triple digits abound, and then we're just going to restart and reload all through the middle of next week. Be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Coming up, Chris Kobach looks to lower Kansas's legal drinking age to 18.
A little bit cloudy to start our Friday, but I'll tell you what, it's not going to slow us down heat-wise. We've got advisories and excessive heat warnings from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And authorities arrest a man after allegedly making threats of terrorism against the juvenile office at the Vernon County Courthouse.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first, let's go to Michael Hayslip.
So I did a little searching here, Tanya, and I know you run into it every now and then, allergy issues. I do not suffer from allergies.
I don't either.
I know, but every now and then, that's why I know, like,
I suffer from headaches and migraines, not allergies.
I know when you and I when you and I start to complain about, oh my gosh, what's going on, like sinus-wise, it's why I have the utmost empathy for like actual allergy sufferers. And so when I look at the pollen count, and it's a fact that our humidity, even number one, we had the wind all this week. Number two, the humidity is making things sticky. For allergy sufferers right now, for today in particular, because I was like, what in the world's going on? Like, I'm gonna go get a piece of toast and douse it with horseradish and try to clean this off. So if you do suffer from allergies, I want you to know that today may be a tad bit miserable for you. And it's probably going to stick around for the weekend as well.
If there's days where you decide to take preventative medicine for it or something.
I do it right now in the morning.
There you
Yes, that's a great point.
Dr. Hayslip.
No, because that's not something I would think of. Yes, I would hit it this morning. And so I went back and I had to look and see what's the problem. It was our wind that knocked everything around, and then our Gulf moisture that took everything that got knocked around by the wind. It was just like, boom, you're stuck here. You're not going to go anywhere. So for those of you that have to undergo that, please know I'm thinking about you this morning, because I probably sound terrible right now. 72 degrees in Joplin. Look at that humidity, 93%. That's what we were talking about, the way everything is just like sticking, all the pollen and everything that was blown by our 30-mile-an-hour winds earlier this week. Our temperatures are a tad bit below what we had Monday through Thursday. That's a little bit deceiving, because we have already got the heat advisories up and that red up in the corner, an excessive heat watch, because we're going to push up into the mid-90s today, come short of challenging the 1952 record of 100 degrees, but stabilizing around 95. And with that humidity, feeling about like 103 to 107. Horseradish.
Can we call it the allergy dome has descended upon us today?
No, because now you're making fun of my heat dome that I like to talk about, and I know exactly what you were doing.
You said it's like stuck. All these conditions are like trapped here right now. You described it as a dome.
I saw where you were headed with that. You're like, Michael likes to use the term heat dome, so we're going to change it up a bit.
Maybe if we took the cap off the cape, we'd be okay.
You know what my mind's saying right now, and I can't say it. Yeah.
I do listen and learn a few things. Maybe.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Michael. Well, authorities arrest an El Dorado Springs, Missouri man after he allegedly made terroristic threats. Officials say David Arduzer Jr. made threats against the juvenile office at the Vernon County Courthouse last week. Arduzer is charged with first-degree terroristic threat and tampering with a judicial officer. They say he also had outstanding warrants from St. Clair County and was out on bond from Cedar County on charges that included unlawful possession of a firearm and second-degree domestic assault. Authorities say the exact details of the threat will not be released until the investigation is complete and after criminal proceedings. Authorities in Joplin released the identity of the man who drowned in Grand Falls this week. That man is 35-year-old Stanley Luke of Carterville, Missouri. Authorities say on Tuesday, Luke tried to go over the falls with a pool toy, hit a rock, and drowned. Search crews from several local departments had been looking for Luke since he went missing. They found his body shortly after 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Authorities are investigating a death after finding a body in Fort Scott, Kansas. Officials say they found the body in the woods near the river at Gun Park. And they say they're still investigating the cause of death and they're not yet releasing the name of the victim. Well, some inmates at the Bourbon County, Kansas jail are being moved. Officials say there just are not enough jail employees to properly staff it, and the jail needs a minimum of 12 staff members. But come Monday, they'll be down to 8. Inmates are being moved to other facilities in southeast Kansas. HVAC system at the jail has also been out for several days. Work to fix it began this week and is expected to finish in the coming days. A Joplin man who was originally accused of kidnapping another man at gunpoint gets 5 years probation on a plea deal. Joplin police say Benjamin Bartlett held a man at gunpoint in the back of a car in December and refused to let him leave. Officers found the car and gave chase. Eventually, Bartlett left the car and ran, but was caught. Bartlett pled guilty to resisting arrest, and prosecutors have dropped the kidnapping charge. Authorities are looking for information in a fatal hit-and-run crash involving a motorcycle and apparently a stolen pickup truck. It happened on a rural road about 3.5 miles west of Jenkins, Missouri, Wednesday morning. Investigators say a pickup hit a motorcycle driven by 38-year-old Patrick Anderson of Aurora, Missouri. Anderson died at the scene. The Highway Patrol says the truck driver got out of the pickup and fled on a bicycle. They say an unknown person then stopped in a car and took that driver from the scene. Investigators think the pickup had recently been stolen out of Monette. They don't know where the bicycle came from or who picked up the driver. Missouri man is in serious condition after a crash. Authorities say Dustin Lingenfelter of Sarcoxie, Missouri lost control of his motorcycle. This caused the vehicle to overturn. He was transported to Mercy Hospital in Joplin. Republican Attorney General candidate Chris Kobach endorses lowering the Kansas legal drinking age to 18. He promises that if he is elected this year, he'll challenge the federal policy preventing the move. Kobach criticized the 1980s federal law that threatens states with the loss of highway dollars if their drinking ages are below 21. He says he believes the U.S. Supreme Court would now overturn that law. Kobach said if 18-year-olds can go to war, they should have all the rights other citizens enjoy. Well, if you're a lover of music, games, and lavender, this event just might be for you. The Lavender Patch Farm in Fort Scott, Kansas is preparing for its 2022 Lavender Fest 5. Tickets are $5. Attendees will get to see demonstrations including how to distill lavender and how to care for lavender. Festival begins Saturday at 9 a.m. and runs until 3 p.m.
We're pretty excited. We'll have the lavender for everybody to see. You can do U-picks, and you can go and get your own bundles of lavender. We're also surrounded by wildflowers on 3 sides, natural wildflowers, and so you can get lavender and wildflowers if you want.
Lavender Patch Farm opened in 2010 with just a single lavender plant. Now the farm has more than 1,000 plants. Today, back in 1940, France surrenders to Germany. With Paris fallen and the German conquest of France reaching its conclusion, Marshal Henri Pétain replaces Paul Renaud as prime minister and announces his intention to sign an armistice with the Nazis. The next day, French General Charles de Gaulle, who was not well known even to the French, made a broadcast to France from England, urging his countrymen to continue the fight against Germany. A military hero during World War I, Pétain was appointed vice premier of France in May of 1940 to boost morale in a country crumbling under the force of Nazi invasion. Instead, Pétain arranged an armistice with the Nazi, which was signed by the French on June 22nd and took effect June 25th. More than half of France was occupied by Germany.
Would also happen on the anniversary of another historical event that we'll talk about a little bit later, that have the names of John Dean, John Mitchell, Alexander Butterfield, Fred Thompson, maybe Richard Nixon in there as well. I do want to talk about something a little bit serious here, Tanya. I know that you grew up around cattle and ranchers and whatnot. And for those of you waking up with us that are in the livestock industry, I want you to know that it is on our radar, and there's no pun intended, it is on our radar what you're going through right now. As Kansas is the third largest cattle state in the United States, you've got, what, Texas, Nebraska, and Kansas being your top three. The kids and I actually looked this up last night. That's why I know that. And so as we move into the northern and western portions of Kansas right now, more than 2,000 cattle deaths reported in the last 48 hours alone. 2,000. It's a result of the high heat and the humidity, and just the cattle not acclimated to how fast we warmed up. Now, the reason I bring that up is number one, because it's such an important part of our four-state lives, but number two, for those of you that are not in the cattle industry, 2,000 head in 48 hours, you're going to notice that when you go to the store. Like this is going to have a lasting impact.
I remember, I mean, I grew up raising cattle too. We had to be careful to
that's why I brought
always
that
make
up.
sure your cattle had like an ample drinking supply throughout the day.
Yeah.
Because if they went all day long without drinking, then they would drink and would drink and would drink and would drink and would drink, and they would literally drown themselves from the inside out.
It's interesting because there were several ranchers that I was just reading testimonials from, and they said that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. That the cattle were trying to catch up for what their bodies could not absorb for the past couple of days, and they would find the carcasses a day later. So once again, for those of you in the cattle industry, the livestock industry, please know that we are monitoring that, and we feel for you. And like I said, Texas, Nebraska, and Kansas. That's 1, 2, and 3. And you just lost 2,000 head in Kansas alone.
Where are they reporting most of the cattle deaths?
Northwestern portion of the state. And here, that's a great, sorry, Corinne.
A place that's been much
Corinne,
drier than here in
But
our
here's
area.
why. Because Tanya asked a great question, where are those coming from? That is why I was equating those two right there. Because the orange, that's the heat advisory that we have. But you drop into that red category, that's the excessive heat watch. Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about, 105 to 110. That humidity kicks in, and also too, we lost that northerly breeze that we had last weekend. So there was nothing to cool them off.
Right. And the western part of Kansas has been much drier.
Much drier.
I mean, you wouldn't think of it here, but their wheat crops are only 7 to 8 inches tall this season because they never got any rain.
Didn't have a chance. Mm-hmm. And you're right. That Hayes Dodge City line, you get to the west of that, it has been much drier. But as you work up to the north, up by the state line of Nebraska, it's so oppressively hot, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. It's a challenge. It definitely is. Yeah. All right. Well, I wish them the best. All right, that's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, NASA takes big steps as it appoints the first time a woman to lead its jet propulsion laboratory. Plus, America sees another shooting, this one in Alabama. We'll have the details. And U.S. life expectancy sees a rise instead of a decline. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Topping Nation Watch this morning, the nation is dealing with yet another fatal shooting, this time at a church in Alabama. Officials are not saying much yet exactly about what happened inside the St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in the Birmingham suburb of Vestavia Hills. Deborah Alfarone has the latest.
Investigators in suburban Alabama are still trying to determine why a lone gunman walked into a church outside of Birmingham and opened fire, killing 2 people and injuring 1.
From what we've gathered from the circumstances of this evening, a lone suspect entered a small group church meeting and began shooting.
The suspect is in custody. Police have not provided any information yet about either the suspects nor the victims' identities.
This is something that you never expect to happen in your community. You know, this happens in other places, and you just don't think it's going to happen here. We need everybody out there, whatever your faith or your belief system is, to pray, to think, to meditate, to just send love to this community, because they're going to need all of it.
Officials are expected to provide another update later this morning. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News.
Alabama Governor Kay Ivey released a statement saying, "We want to offer our prayers for the victims' families, the injured, and the entire church community. This should never happen in a church, in a store, in the city, or anywhere." That's a look at today's top national story. We'll be right back.
For the first time in history, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory appoints a woman to lead the pioneering Space Research Center, with companies like SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin, all hoping to travel further into space than ever before. It's a very exciting time for new leadership in the aerospace industry. Rachel Kim with the story.
When I was younger, I couldn't imagine that, you could actually have a job and working in the space business.
Not only is Lori Leshin working in the space business, she's the first female director of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and vice president of Caltech. She's been on the job for 1 month now, and this afternoon, after she addressed JPL's first in-person interns in more than 2 years, Leshin sat down with us. She talked about her path to this position, which began as a PhD student at Caltech. It was then on to a distinguished career as a geochemist, space scientist, and in academia.
When I was more of a bench scientist, we got to work on very cool meteorites and study water in the solar system, and got to be here when Curiosity landed 10 years ago this summer. I was honored to work for NASA at NASA headquarters and have the opportunity to work on, the future human spaceflight program, the Artemis missions to the moon.
Leshin is thrilled now to be leading the team at JPL and feels honored to stand on the shoulders of women who came before her. She joins the lab from a university where she addressed gender disparities in STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
I definitely want to focus on making JPL a really inclusive environment, a place where all great minds can thrive. And that includes women, that includes people from all backgrounds. To the women out there, I would say go for it. We need you in space exploration.
Dr. Leshin says it's a dream come true for her to return to working closely with colleagues here at JPL and on the Caltech campus. She believes they have great opportunities ahead to drive innovation across the global space ecosystem.
The SpaceXs of the world and the Blue Origins of the world, and lots of startup companies in the space ecosystem. And JPL has always been an essential player in the space ecosystem, and we need to work on how we maintain that and help these companies succeed. This is a place where you can come and dream big and make those dreams into reality.
Skywatch Storm Tracker as we press into the weekend, Father's Day weekend, and for those of you that are going to take time to be with your dad, make sure that you either get out early in the morning or do things in the evening, because our afternoons are going to be extremely hot. As far as if you're having the sinus pressure build up, I took a look here. I think it's because that low pressure that's moving in just east of the Rockies right there. Remember, the darker the color, the lower the pressure. And so we're starting to see some low pressure creep in just from the central portions of Kansas and Oklahoma that are headed our way. But we've been able to stay out of the thunderstorm fray that stayed up way to the far north of us. So we'll call that a winter. They do have a mess on their hands, however, along just to the north of I-70 and now right along I-70 into the St. Louis area. If we put on our local storm reports, they have anything from 70-mile-an-hour winds to trees being knocked down, especially when it picked up there just on the other side of Columbia and then headed towards St. Louis. Here in the 4 states, not too bad at all. Put on the satellite coverage, and yeah, it almost feels overcast with some of our tower cams right now. But even with that being said, it's going to be a quick heat up, as we'll be up into the mid-90s later on today. We've got heat advisories and even excessive heat warnings in effect. feeling in between 103 to 107 during our peak heating hours. And then look at that for next week. We're actually going to be off to a hotter start next week than what we started off this week. Be back with more KOAM Morning News and Health Watch right after this.
Tapping Health Watch this morning, people who become infected with the Omicron variant are less likely to develop long COVID compared to those who had the Delta strain. Long COVID sufferers can experience symptoms including fatigue, shortness of breath, and joint pain 4 weeks or more after infection. A new study published in The Lancet finds life expectancy in the U.S. rose more than 2 years between 2000 and 2019, from about 76 years to 79 years. But researchers found key differences between racial and ethnic groups, with life expectancy for Black populations lower than white populations, underscoring the need to address disparities in healthcare. European researchers looking at when to recommend genetic testing for athletes report most athletes who die suddenly had no symptoms or family history of heart disease. Guidelines published in the European Society of Cardiology say clinical evaluations are appropriate for most athletes, but in some cases, genetic testing is the best course to identify heart abnormalities, which could be life-threatening. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. Coming up, Chris Kobach looks to lower Kansas's legal drinking age to 18.
We've got a scorcher in the 4 states as we head into Father's Day weekend, and also, too, the heat to blame for thousands of head of cattle and their recent deaths. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch website.
And authorities arrest a man after allegedly making threats of terrorism against the juvenile office at the Bourbon County Courthouse.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6:29. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first, let's go to Michael Hayslip.
Yeah, and I hate to start off on a somber note, Tanya, but we were talking about the heat and humidity, and we've been harping on how dangerous it can be. Well, think about this. Number one, you and I have reiterated the fact that weather-related deaths in the United States, heat is the number one contributing factor. In the past 48 hours, in the state of Kansas alone, okay, Kansas alone, 2,000 head of cattle have died because of heat and humidity. I mean, if that doesn't make you take things seriously as far as what we're going to have headed into the weekend and on into next week, I'm not sure what else I can say. The record high of 100 degrees dates back to 1953. We will come up short of that, but I'll tell you what, we're going to be well above average, even though our temperatures are actually backing off a little bit from what we had earlier this week. As a matter of fact, bottom left-hand corner of your screen, Veneta, 69 degrees. When's the last time we saw a 60? Got to go back to last week, as a matter of fact. But an indicator of where we're headed, heat advisories indicated in the orange that are going to last all the way to, they're going to be extended. But up to the north, here's what we're talking about. Those are excessive heat watches that we've got there in the red. And so what we've had is, you have to remember, Kansas is the third largest I don't want to say cattle producing, but third largest state as far as head of cattle go, with Texas, Nebraska, and Kansas as your 1, 2, and 3. And like I said, in the state of Kansas alone, 2,000 head of cattle lost in the past 48 hours because of the heat and humidity. And so that's why I just want everybody to take this very, very seriously. As we watch thunderstorm activity that moved out of Kansas City overnight, it has now progressed all the way to St. Louis. It did produce 70-mile-an-hour winds, multiple storm reports, and flooding right now in downtown St. Louis. But for the 4 states, it's really just about making sure you stay safe. Tanya and I always like to say, check on your neighbors, make sure your pets are okay, and take care of yourself as well. Heat exhaustion, heat stroke. Remember, heat exhaustion's one that can lead to heat stroke. So if you start to see somebody become dizzy, confused, they kind of say, ow, my limbs don't feel exactly right, that's when you need to get that person, especially children, elderly, chronic diseases. Get them inside to air conditioning, get them a cup of water ASAP.
And if you are working in a job where you have to be outside throughout the day, make sure you take breaks. Make sure you drink lots of water. Use sunscreen. Find shade.
Also, too, I'm from someone who used to work outside
Oh, I thought you about said you used to work out.
In Texas. For all of you that are supervisors and bosses, take care of your employees. Mm-hmm. Take care of them. Make sure they're taking breaks. Go out there and make sure they have water. I know it's really easy to sit inside an air conditioning truck and watch people work, but it means a whole lot more to them when you tell them, hey guys, you need to take 10.
Very true.
That's coming from a young kid who's in the midst of that.
And if you have a neighbor, especially elderly neighbors,
check on them.
Check on them.
Yeah.
They may not have a working AC, or they may not have the resources that you could help
to
them
reach
with,
out
right?
for help. They
Yeah.
may not know how to reach out for help. Check on them if they need help. That way you can take care of them.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Well, authorities arrest an El Dorado Springs, Missouri man after he allegedly made terroristic threats. Officials say David Arduzer Jr. made threats against the juvenile office at the Vernon County Courthouse last week. Arduzer is charged with first-degree terroristic threat and tampering with a judicial officer. They say he also had outstanding warrants from St. Clair County and was out on bond from Cedar County on charges that included unlawful possession of a firearm and second-degree domestic assault. Authorities say the exact details of the threat will not be released until the investigation is complete and after criminal proceedings. Authorities investigate a death after finding a body in Fort Scott, Kansas. Officials say they found the body in the woods near the river at Gun Park. They say they are still investigating the cause of death and they are not yet releasing the name of the victim. Authorities in Joplin released the identity of the man who drowned in Grand Falls this week. The man is identified as 35-year-old Stanley Luke of Carterville, Missouri. Authorities say on Tuesday, Luke tried to go over the falls with a pool toy, hit a rock, and drowned. Search crews from several local departments had been looking for Luke since he went missing. They found his body shortly after 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Authorities are looking for information in a fatal hit-and-run crash involving a motorcycle and apparently a stolen pickup truck. It happened on a rural road about 3.5 miles west of Jenkins, Missouri, Wednesday morning. Investigators say a pickup hit a motorcycle driven by 38-year-old Patrick Anderson of Aurora, Missouri. Anderson died at the scene. The Highway Patrol says the truck driver got out of the pickup and fled on a bicycle. They say an unknown person then stopped in a car and took the driver from the scene. Investigators think the pickup had recently been stolen out of Monette. They don't know where the bicycle came from or who picked up the driver. Joplin man who was originally accused of kidnapping another man at gunpoint gets 5 years probation on a plea deal. Joplin police say Benjamin Bartlett held a man at gunpoint in the back of a car in December and refused to let him leave. Officers found the car and gave chase. Eventually, Bartlett left the car and ran, but was caught. Bartlett pled guilty to resisting arrest. Prosecutors have dropped the kidnapping charge. Missouri man is in serious condition after a crash. Authorities say Dustin Lingenfelter of Sarcoxie, Missouri, lost control of his motorcycle. This caused the vehicle to overturn. He was transported to Mercy Hospital in Joplin. Today, back in 1940 as well, British and Allied troops continue the evacuation of France as Winston Churchill reassures his countrymen. Now, this evacuation was known as Operation Ariel, which was an exodus almost on the order of Dunkirk. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill offered words of encouragement in a broadcast to the nation. Defend our island home, and with the British Empire, we shall fight on, unconquerable, until the curse of Hitler is lifted, unquote. With 2/3 of France now occupied by German troops, those British and Allied troops that had not participated in Operation Dynamo, also known as the evacuation of Dunkirk, they were shipped home. British, Polish, and Canadian troops were rescued from occupied territory by boats sent from Britain.
What year was that?
1940.
40? 1972, 50 years ago today. You know what happened at a apartment complex?
Well, neither of us were around.
No.
Well,
kind of like hotel complex kind of place.
Okay. Give me a country.
The United States.
Okay.
You may know the complex. It's got a fancy name. It's called Watergate. It's 50 years ago today the break-in happened. 7-day forecast lifting us up into the mid-90s, feeling like 103 to 107. Heat advisories and excessive heat warnings. Enjoy your time with Dad over Father's Day weekend. Just if you're going to be out and about, whether it be cooking out, whether it be fishing, or whether it be just like spending some time out in the fresh air. Try to do it either early in the morning or later in the evening. Avoid those peak heating hours in between about 2 and 6.
Let's look at our top news stories coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News. Juneteenth is coming up this Monday. Some companies seek to profit off of it, which has caused a little bit of backlash. We're going to have the details. Plus, a movie inspired by a true story of a couple winning the lottery and using the money to revitalize their town. This makes us want to know, do you play the lottery? We'll let you weigh in. We'll be right back. In Consumer Watch this morning, this Sunday is Juneteenth, a day that commemorates the end of slavery in the United States. And of course, Monday is the official holiday recognized. As Americans across the country mark this special holiday, many are calling out companies that are trying to make a profit. Elise Preston reports.
Juneteenth is a day for celebration and remembrance. Last year, President Joe Biden signed a new law making June 19th a federal holiday. It joins other summer holidays like the 4th of July, which retailers have used to market and sell products. And there are fears companies will try to capitalize on Juneteenth.
Nobody asked for this. Nobody.
Last month, North Carolina mom Darianne Alexis McNeil spotted a Juneteenth branded ice cream while shopping with her son at Walmart. She shared her disappointment on social media, and the post went viral.
They would never drop ice cream to celebrate Auschwitz. You know, the liberation of Auschwitz. We don't get the same sensitivity when it comes to the Holocaust, basically, of our own people.
Did you explain any of this to your 10-year-old son?
He asked me why I didn't buy it. And I told him that's just not something that I will accept or participate in.
Walmart removed the ice cream and apologized.
What I don't want Juneteenth to become is reduced and relegated to, just a Mattress Day sale.
LaQuana Austin with the Juneteenth Foundation believes instead of pushing products, corporations can use the day to instead promote diversity and equity within their companies. And he says the best way for American families to celebrate is to reflect on the holiday's importance and invest in communities of color.
Go out and buy black. Use this as a singular day to actually go out and support local black businesses and entrepreneurs in your community. Us supporting each other is a really important, critical component of it.
A critical lesson, McNeil says she is teaching her son. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
On June 19th in 1865, the last enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, were officially told that the Civil War was over and that they were free. 2 years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. That's it for Consumer Watch. Let's go over to Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Thank you, Tanya. This morning we're talking about playing the lottery as far as our Insta poll and the KOAM News Now Facebook page. Brand new movie coming out. It's going to be on Paramount Plus today. It's called Jerry and Marge Go Large. Can't beat the cast. Bryan Cranston, Annette Bening. Well, it's based on a true story. Once Jerry Selby discovers a loophole in the lottery, he and his family, they cash in, but here's the cool part. They involve their entire town. They take care of their kids, their grandchildren, and their great-grandchildren along the way. Our specific question for you this morning is, do you play the lottery? Tanya and I really thought these percentages would change as we went throughout the course of the show. They really haven't. 87% of you say no, you do not play, compared to only 13% which say yes, you do partake. Remember, each and every morning, KOAMNewsNow.com/vote. That takes you straight to the poll. Or connect to us via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now. We're going to come back, celebrate birthdays and anniversaries. But first, M Squares in New York.
I'm Michelle Miller. Coming up on CBS Mornings, Nate sits down with NBA star Iman Shumpert to talk about fatherhood. He shares the things that have helped mold him into the father that he is today. That's coming up on CBS Mornings.
We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Sergeant Zachary Shoemaker, former employee here at KOAM. Pittsburgh, Kansas native, served in Iraq and Afghanistan as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. This highly decorated veteran earned an Army Commendation Medal, Combat Action Ribbon, the National Defense Service Medal, and NATO Service Medal, just to name a few. to Sergeant Zachary Shoemaker. We thank you, today's four-state hero.
Good dude right there. Good dude. Xanthire Baldwin. Tanya, when I looked at the list, I went, I have not seen that name before, and I absolutely love it.
I like it too.
I don't know how Mom and Dad came up with that name, but Xanthire, consider yourself absolutely lucky to have such a beautiful first name, kiddo. Xanthire is now double digits. She's 10 years old. What do we got there? A citizenship award?
Yeah.
Congratulations and happy 10th birthday.
All right. And gracing us from St. Paul, Kansas, we have Grace Marshall, who's turning 17 years old.
And evidently was a goofball as a child.
Yeah. Little throwback picture there, Grace. Happy birthday.
You want to do the home? I guess she splits hometown.
Oh, okay. It says St. Paul, Kansas, and Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
She's here, there, and everywhere. Glenda McCarty celebrating her 78th birthday, and I know that the relay for life, and that's a Survivor shirt that she has on. So Glenda, congratulations and a very happy birthday to you, ma'am.
All right, happy birthday, Glenda. And a happy birthday to one of our four-state heroes, Mr. Delbert Rex Winkle from Iola, Kansas, turning 92 years old this weekend. Happy birthday, Mr. Rex Winkle. I understand he served 2 years as a Marine during the Korean War. Thank you for your service.
You know, sometimes I like to give people a hard time when we don't have a picture, but sometimes we come back with a picture.
Mm-hmm.
Florence Kammerer turns 97, and we have a gorgeous picture of Miss Florence here. And Florence, a very happy birthday to you. Her birthday was yesterday, but we wanted to make sure that we celebrated appropriately today. And Florence, happy birthday in the Otisha.
All right, Miss Joyce Huff is celebrating a birthday this weekend. We've got birthday wishes coming from Chris and Sophie.
Carl and Angie Lewis. What a cool picture right there. I'm not sure where that is, but Lewis's, thank you for providing us with that beautiful landscape right there. They're celebrating 27 years of marriage in Parsons.
Mm-hmm. We've got quite an anniversary list this morning. We're going to continue it with Gail and Juanita Alloway celebrating 46 years together. Congratulations to Gail and Juanita in Parsons as well.
And then we've got John and Debbie Churchick. They're celebrating 56 years. Congratulations to the Churchicks on, wow. I tell you what, Tanya, every day when we go through our anniversary numbers, it is amazing. And really says a lot about the four states right there. 56 years in Carl Junction.
And we have a couple of KOAM employees celebrating wedding anniversaries. This is our very own promotions manager, Mr. Vance Lewis, with his wife, Allison, celebrating 34 years. They're in Carl Junction. What's really cool about Vance and Allison is they are the amazing parents of our production assistant, Trevor.
Do you have it framed up appropriately?
Yep,
okay.
There he is.
So this is
the man behind the camera.
Sometimes you will hear me reference Trevor behind the camera, and this is Vance and Allison's son. And you do amazing work. I'm going to give you the opportunity. I'm giving you the microphone right now to talk to Mom and Dad.
Hi, Mom and Dad. Happy anniversary. Go enjoy yourselves.
You're awesome, kid. Hey, and Vance and Allison, you guys raised a marvelous kid too. Marvelous kid. And Trevor, yeah, you owe it all to them because you got two amazing parents, my man. Drew and Carenza Cook celebrating their first anniversary. Where's Carenza
at? She's at the producer desk right now.
Hey, Tim, I'm gonna come back to this one. Is that cool? Can I do that? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up. All right, thumbs up. I got it. Let's move on. Trevor, go get Carenza. Because we've got two that we're going to come back to. So I want to get to Paul Peterson on the list. Paul is turning 55 in Iola. And Paul, a very, very happy birthday to you. And so while I'm waiting for Carenza to come down, and this, folks, this is why this is like a family. This is why this is a family show. because we've got an anniversary and a birthday that we still have to get to. But also too, the reason why this, go down there with her. The reason why this is a family show is because I've got another birthday that I want to point out today. I'm just going to say Joe Jean. Joe Jean, a very happy birthday to you. And I want you to know how much I love you and everything that you've done for the Hayslips. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to say a very happy birthday to Miss Joe Jean. She knows who I'm talking about. Now, let's go back to those pictures. Let me clean myself up here real fast. Let's go back to those pictures really fast. This is Drew and Carinza Holla Cook. And that would be Carinza on the left-hand side of your screen. Carinza is the producer of this show. And so Carinza, I'm going to turn it over to you and Tanya because you, number one, congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you.
But also, two, we have a very special birthday after that. And I'm going to let you take it over from here.
And this is a big anniversary. This is your first anniversary. This
Yes,
is huge.
it's very big.
And I understand you have a special message for your husband.
Yes, I do want to say happy birthday. I mean, not birthday. Wow, I'm jumping ahead. Sorry. Happy anniversary to my husband. He's put up with a lot, and here's to the next bajillion years or whatever.
Whose birthday is it?
It's my mom.
Yeah!
How
Janet,
awesome is that?
holla!
My mom works here at KOAM too. She's the best mom, and I'm totally her favorite child. Sorry, Drew, I know you're watching right now because I told you to, but I'm totally her favorite kid.
Oh, I love it. We did it. Folks, this is not scripted. This is organic.
No, she did not know she was coming on. Did not know this at all. So.
This is as organic as we can get.
Happy birthday, Mom. I love you, and I am excited for lamb lasagna on Saturday.
Ooh.
Made by me, so we'll see how it goes.
Hey, producer, I blew your clock out of the water, by the way.
Hey, it is okay. I am not worried.
We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this. Up into the mid-90s later on today. Heat advisories for the majority of the 4 states. Excessive heat warnings up in our northwestern portion. So I need everybody to take precautions. And also, too, want to reiterate that if you're a supervisor/boss and you have a crew that works outside, please make sure that you take care of them. Not only for today, but if you're working into the weekend, Father's Day weekend. Remember, we still gonna ride that oppressive category, even though our overnight lows get a tad bit better as we press through Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday and Tuesday. Daily highs, no, there is no relief from the heat as the 90s are abound on the 7-day forecast.
All right, well, coming up today at noon, we're making old-time hot dog sauce in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
I have no idea what that is.
I don't either.
I just wanted horseradish earlier.
Hot dog sauce. I'm assuming it's a type of combination of horseradish, ketchup, something you would put on your hot dog. Oh, Michael doesn't like ketchup.
Do not mix condiments, folks.
Maybe it has mayonnaise in it. I have no idea. We'll have to find out today at noon.
Okay, that's terrible. Coming up on CBS Mornings, as we mentioned earlier, 50 years since the original Watergate break-in. Coming up, Leslie Stahl, who covered the scandal from the beginning, discusses how that compares to the January 6th insurrection, but also, too, CBS News will be running specials later on this evening with Leslie Stahl and her recollections covering the Watergate break-in when she was around Walter Cronkite. I cannot wait to watch that later on tonight. Wraps it up for this Friday. Happy Father's Day to all of you out there. Do me a favor, be safe. We'll do this all again Monday morning.
And we'll do it again today at noon.